I never believed a single phone call could destroy the way you see your entire life. Until it happened to me. The first time my phone rang from a no-caller ID, I almost didn't answer. It was late, I was tired, and unknown numbers usually meant telemarketers or scams. But something, call it intuition, call it stupidity, made me pick up. "Hi, Emily." My entire body froze. Not because someone knew my name, but because of the way he said it. Soft. Familiar. Like he'd said my name 1,000 times before. "Who is this?" I asked. Silence, then a quiet breath. "You don't remember me. But I remember everything about you." My throat closed. I hung up immediately. At that moment, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. A prank. A wrong number. Anything but what it felt like. But deep down, something cold inside me whispered, "This is only the beginning." The second call came the next night at 11:03 p.m., the same exact time. I answered with my heart pounding. "Emily," he said again, "you shouldn't walk home alone so late. You know that." I physically stepped back from my own window, as if he could see me through it. "How do you know where I am?" I demanded. He chuckled. A soft, sad sound. "I've always known. Since you were a little girl." My skin crawled. No one knew about my childhood, not the real parts. I had spent years burying certain memories. Locking them away. Pretending they never happened. But this man. This stranger. He talked like he'd lived them with me. "I don't know who you are," I said, my voice shaking, "but stop calling me." Another long pause. "I'm trying to protect you, Emily. More than you realize." I hung up again. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. The next day, little things in my apartment felt off. My bedroom door was slightly open, even though I always closed it. The glass on my nightstand was moved 2 inches from where I left it. There was a faint smell in the hallway, cologne, maybe, one I didn't recognize. Blamed my imagination. I had been stressed. Working long hours. Barely sleeping. But paranoia settles into the corners of your home. Long before you realize it has a name. That night, the third call came. This time I didn't say hello. I whispered. "What do you want from me?" He exhaled shakily, like he was hurt by the question. "I don't want anything. I just don't want him to hurt you the way he hurt me." I felt like the world tilted sideways. "Him who?" I asked. But he didn't answer. The line went dead. For the first time, I considered the possibility that this wasn't random. That this stranger wasn't choosing me out of nowhere. That he wasn't the danger. Maybe he was warning me about one. At that moment, the door behind me opened. "Hey, babe," my roommate said casually, "you okay? You look pale." I nodded, forcing a smile. But something inside me shifted. For the first time, I wondered whether the danger was already in my home. If you want more true stories like this one, make sure you follow the channel so you never miss the next chapter. Tried to convince myself I was imagining things. That my roommate Michael wasn't acting strange. That the calls were a coincidence. That the feeling in my stomach wasn't fear but exhaustion. But deep down, I knew better. Michael stood in the doorway of the kitchen that night, watching me fill a glass of water as if waiting for something. Or for me to say something. "You sure everything's okay?" he asked again. "Yeah," I lied, forcing my hand not to shake. "Just tired." He stepped closer, too close, resting his hand on my shoulder in a way that suddenly felt wrong. Not comforting. Possessive. "I'm here if you need anything." "You know that," he said quietly. I nodded, pretending not to be terrified. But the moment he turned away, my heart dropped. Because I saw it. Just for a second. The faintest smile on his face. A smile that didn't match his words. A smile I'd never noticed before. A smile that felt like the lighting of a match in a dark room. Something was off. Not with the stranger. With Michael. The next morning, I checked my phone first thing. No missed calls. No messages. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt worse. I kept replaying the stranger's words in my head. I don't want him to hurt you the way he hurt me. Who was him? Michael? Someone else? Someone I had forgotten? On my way to work, I noticed something chilling. The stranger wasn't calling anymore. But someone was watching. A man stood across the street as I walked, pretending to read a newspaper. Except he wasn't turning pages. And when I glanced back, he looked away too fast. My breath hitched. Was that the stranger? Or someone connected to Michael? Suddenly, the world didn't feel safe on any side. That night, the call finally came. No caller ID. I answered immediately. I saw you, I whispered. Across the street. Was that you? No. The word was sharp. Immediate. Then he added. If someone was watching you, it wasn't me. And if he's already following you, you're running out of time. My knees went weak. I sat down on the floor. Who is he? I screamed. Tell me who you're talking about. Silence. Then. The man you live with. You think you know him, but you don't. You never saw what he did to me. What he's capable of. My blood turned to ice. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. He continued. You need to start paying attention to the things that don't make sense. They're not accidents. They're warnings. I squeezed the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. What things? I whispered. He answered immediately. The night you fell down the stairs. The tea that tasted bitter. The time you woke up and he was standing next to your bed just checking on you. My breath left my body. Those things. I remembered them. But I had explained them away. Had convinced myself I was clumsy. Forgetful. Overreacting. But deep down. I knew. None of them made sense. I whispered, why would he hurt me? Michael isn't like that. The stranger's voice broke for the first time, raw and trembling. That's exactly what I thought about him too. Until the night he almost killed me. I dropped the phone. He wasn't warning me about some theoretical danger. He was warning me about a man he knew. A man he had survived. A man who lived under my roof. My roommate. The person I trusted. But before I could call back. Before I could even think. I heard the door. Michael was home. His keys jingled in that familiar rhythm he always made. But tonight the sound felt like a threat. Emily, he called out. Why is your phone on the floor? My blood froze. He walked toward me slowly. And I realized something terrifying. Michael never came home early. Not once. Until tonight. Michael stepped into the living room, his footsteps sounding louder than they ever had before. He picked my phone up from the floor, his eyes scanning my face. You okay? He asked slowly. His tone was soft, but there was something behind it now. A weight. A pressure. I nodded, forcing my lips into a weak smile. Yeah, I just dropped it. I'm fine. He studied me for a moment too long. Then he turned the phone over in his hand. His thumb hovering right over the lock screen, as if he was tempted to try and open it. My heart pounded. He set it down on the table instead, then looked back at me. You seem different, he said. Has something happened? Yes. Someone had called me and told me he might be a monster. But I swallowed the truth and shook my head. No, just stressed from work. He nodded slowly, but I could tell he didn't fully believe me. It felt like there was a new layer to our conversations now. A second conversation happening underneath the words. One where he was asking, "Do you know who I really am?" And I was silently asking, "Do you know that I might be starting to see it?" That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time since I'd moved in. I told myself it was just for my anxiety. But the truth was, I didn't feel safe sleeping in the same apartment with him anymore. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the stranger's words. The night you fell down the stairs. The tea that tasted bitter. The time you woke up and he was standing next to your bed. My brain had done such a good job of rationalizing those moments. The stairs? I was clumsy. The tea? I assumed the brand was just stronger. Waking up with him beside the bed? I told myself it was sweet. Protective. Now, all of it felt different. Twisted. My phone lay next to my pillow. Screen off. Silent. I waited for the call. It didn't come. The next few days were a slow descent into a kind of paranoia I didn't recognize in myself. Michael was normal. Too normal. He made jokes. He cooked dinner. He sent memes. He asked about my day. But every time his hand brushed past mine, I felt a jolt of fear. Every time he opened a door, I flinched. Once, he walked into the living room quietly while I was reading, and I jumped so violently I nearly dropped my book. He laughed. "Wow, you're jumpy lately," he said lightly. "You should really get some rest." I stared at him, wondering if he was mocking me. Or genuinely concerned. And which answer scared me more? The call stopped for 3 days. No caller ID. No warnings. No stranger. The silence was worse than the phone ringing ever was. I started to question everything. What if the caller was lying? What if he was the dangerous one? What if he was obsessed with me and wanted me to turn against Michael? But then little things started happening again. I came home one evening and found my bedroom window slightly open. I never opened it. I hated the draft. One morning I woke up with a pounding headache and a strange taste in my mouth. And Michael casually mentioned he had already made coffee. My favorite blend, just the way I liked it. Another day, I found my purse moved from its usual chair to the kitchen counter. None of it was proof. But it felt like someone was rehearsing something. Testing how far they could go without being noticed. And I realized. Somebody had been doing that for a long time. On the 4th night, the phone rang again. My heart almost leapt out of my chest. I answered before it could ring twice. "Where have you been?" I whispered. "You can't just disappear like that." He sounded tired. Weaker than before. I had to be careful. "He's getting suspicious." My blood ran cold. Suspicious of what? Of you acting different. Of you locking your door. Of you jumping when he walks in. He's not stupid, Emily. He knows when something's off. I covered my mouth, realizing the one thing I hadn't considered. I wasn't the only one watching him. He was watching me. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" I asked. "Because I didn't want to make it worse. If he finds out I've been trying to warn you, he'll move faster." I began pacing the room, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. "You keep saying he hurt you," I said. "What did he do? Who are you to him?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then he said, "I lived with him, just like you do. I thought he was my friend. I thought he cared. Until the night I woke up and couldn't feel my legs. I stopped breathing. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late," he continued. He had already dragged me halfway down the stairs. He told me if I ever told anyone what he'd done, he would finish the job. Everyone believed it was an accident. But I knew. And so does he. I pressed my back against the wall, sliding down to the floor. Why didn't you go to the police? I whispered. Who would they believe? A man with anger issues who lost his temper once? Or the roommate who probably tripped? His voice broke. I closed my eyes. I could see it. Too clearly. Michael had told me once about a bad situation with an old roommate. He said the guy was dramatic. Unstable. Lied about everything. I had believed him. Without question. He tested things on me, the stranger added quietly. Just like he's doing with you now. Smaller things first. Things he can blame on you being tired or clumsy. Until one night, it's not small anymore. A tear slipped down my cheek. What do I do? I asked, my voice shaking. Do I confront him? Do I pretend nothing's wrong? He answered instantly. You leave. You don't warn him. You don't fight him alone. You get out while you still can. And that's when I made the mistake that almost cost me everything. I thought I still had time. I thought I could wait. Plan. Think. Gather proof. I thought if I just acted normal for a few days, I could figure out a safe way to leave without him noticing. I was wrong. Because danger doesn't wait for your schedule. It moves the moment it realizes you see it. The next evening, I decided to test something. I pretended to be asleep on the couch, my eyes mostly closed, breathing slow and even. I heard the door open. Keys. Shoes. Silence. Then, footsteps behind me. They stopped right next to the couch. I felt him standing over me. Watching. I kept my breathing steady, every muscle screaming. After what felt like an eternity, I heard him move again. But not toward his bedroom. Toward the kitchen. Cabinet door. Soft clink of glass. Tap running. Something poured. A teaspoon stirring. Then his steps came back. He stood over me again. This time, he spoke. He said softly. I made you some tea. You fell asleep out here. I forced my eyes open, blinking as if I had just woken up. Michael stood there, smiling gently, holding a mug. The same way he had the night before I accidentally fell down the stairs. My stomach turned. I looked at the mug like it was a loaded weapon. Thanks, I whispered, taking it with shaking hands. He watched me. I didn't drink. You're not going to try it, he asked. Something about his tone made my skin crawl. I will, I lied. It's just hot. We locked eyes for a moment too long. And in that moment, I saw it. Not kindness. Not concern. Curiosity. Like he was mentally taking notes. Like he wanted to see if I trusted him enough to drink. Or if I already knew better. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with my back against the wall, phone in hand, listening to every sound in the apartment. At 2:37 a.m., someone tried my door. The handle turned. Once. Twice. Slowly. Carefully. Testing. The lock held. Silence. Then footsteps walking away. My hand shook so violently I almost dropped my phone. I typed a single message to the unknown number that had been calling me. He tried my door. The reply came within seconds. I told you. Leave the house. Tomorrow. Don't wait for him to give you a reason. He already has. I stared at the screen and realized something. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I was in danger. And the scariest part wasn't that a stranger knew everything about my life. It was that a man I thought I knew was a stranger all along. The next morning, I woke up with one decision carved into my mind like a scar. I needed to leave. Not in a week. Not in a few days. Not when it felt right. I needed to get out while he still believed everything was normal. But pretending to be normal around someone dangerous is its own kind of nightmare. Michael acted completely calm that morning. Too calm. He made pancakes. He hummed while cooking. He asked if I slept well. He offered to drive me to work because it was raining. Every sentence felt like a trap. Every smile looked painted on. Too even. Too practiced. When I left the apartment, my legs nearly buckled under me. The moment I turned the corner, I grabbed my phone and typed, "I'm leaving today." The stranger replied instantly. "Good. Don't go back there alone. He'll sense it." I swallowed hard. How do you know how he thinks? His answer chilled me to the bone. Because I lived with him. And that's exactly what he said about me. At work, I could barely focus. Every time the office door opened, I flinched. At 5:12 p.m., I took my bag, walked straight out, and didn't look back. I called a friend, told her I needed a place to stay. I didn't explain why, just that it was an emergency. She didn't ask questions. She told me to come over immediately. I prayed Michael wouldn't be home when I returned for my things. I prayed harder than I ever had in my life. When I opened the apartment door that evening, the air felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Like the entire home was holding its breath. "Michael?" I called out softly. Silence. I stepped inside, ready to grab my essentials and leave in less than 30 seconds. But as I crossed the living room, I felt a presence behind me. A shift in the air. A shadow moving at the corner of my eye. I turned around. And there he was. Standing in the hallway. Watching me. No smile. No expression. Just stillness. "Hey," he said quietly. "You're home early." My heart dropped. "I just needed to grab a few things," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He took a few steps toward me. Slow. Measured. "You're leaving?" he asked. My blood froze. "How did you?" He stopped walking but tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle. "You're acting strange, Emily. Jumping. Locking your door. Sneaking around. Whispering on the phone. What's going on?" My pulse thundered so loud I thought he could hear it. I forced a shaky laugh. "No, no. I just..." Then my phone vibrated in my pocket. I looked down. A message from the stranger. "Leave the house. Now." My hands trembled. He noticed. "What was that?" Michael asked softly. "Who keeps texting you?" I stepped back. I don't know. It's nothing." He stepped forward. Something dark flickered behind his eyes. "Emily," he said quietly, "you don't have to lie to me." Another step. The room felt smaller. The walls closer. The air heavier. My breath shook. "I'm not lying," I whispered. His voice dropped, low and calm. "You never lie to me. So why start now?" My heart nearly stopped. I understood something in that moment. He already knew. He knew I knew. And the act was over. The second he looked away. Just for a blink. Just to adjust the sleeve of his shirt. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I didn't look back. I sprinted out the door, down the hallway, down the stairs so fast I nearly fell. I burst out onto the street, my lungs burning, my vision blurring. My phone rang. No caller ID. I answered with shaking hands. "Where are you?" I cried. "Keep running. Get somewhere safe. Don't stop." I couldn't even speak. I just sobbed. When I finally reached my friend's building, I collapsed inside the lobby. The stranger was still on the line. "What do I do now?" I whispered, trembling. His voice softened. Not threatening. Not obsessive. But tired. Broken. You go to the police. Tonight. You tell them everything. And you don't go back there. Not even for 1 minute. Why? I cried. Why did you help me? There was a long pause. Then he spoke the final words that changed how I saw everything. Because when it was my turn, no one helped me. And I wasn't going to let him destroy someone else's life. The line went silent. For a long time, I sat there, sobbing into my hands. Grateful for a voice I had once feared. Terrified of a man I had once trusted. That night, I filed a police report. I never saw Michael again. But sometimes, late at night, when my phone buzzes, even if it's just a spam email or a weather alert, my heart stops. Because now I understand something I didn't before. The people who scare us aren't always strangers. Sometimes, they're the ones sitting right beside us.